Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. And if you're a first-time listener, hopefully you will become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. So today's theme, permission to stop practicing law. And I feel completely honored to have our guest today, Wendy Witt of the $1 Million Attorney. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Molly. I'm happy to be here. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before our podcast is kind of just reflecting on our journey. We've known each other for about 20 years now, right?
It is 20, 21 years, something in there. Yeah. And we both had quite a journey.
Yes. And I'm excited for you to share your journey. I just, wow, it's way back when at the National Network of Estate Planning Attorneys. And for our listeners, if you are not familiar with that organization, I'd highly recommend you checking them out. That's where I started my career. And I am really, I got a little teary-eyed this morning thinking about it, of our journey and where we started out, so to speak, and where I started out, and just my deep, deep gratitude for, in particular, Steve Riley and Rick Randall, who gave me a chance and believed in me sometimes when I didn't even believe in myself, and just so grateful for this journey that I have been on for 20 plus years. It's just incredible. And that's where I met you.
You did. I was actually an attorney, a new practicing attorney and a member of the network.
So tell us about your backstory, Wendy. You're a practicing attorney in the estate planning arena. I don't even think elder law was really a street term back then. Nobody was really speaking of it. And talk to us a little bit about where you started as a practicing attorney to where you are today as being really a renowned coach in regards to $1 Million Attorney.
I'd be happy to. Well, it might be interesting. I don't talk about this much, but the first 8 years after law school, I didn't even want to be an attorney. I didn't know how to practice. I didn't know what to do. I came out of law school thinking everything was litigation, and I knew I didn't want to do that. And they really emphasized, or I felt they emphasized at that point in my life, big firms. And I knew that wasn't for me, but I couldn't figure out what really was. And I was actually pregnant with our third child, Drew, who's now 20. And I read a book that really got me excited about estate planning. And I'm like, I need to protect these kids. So my husband and I actually went in to do our own planning. And it happened to be in my hometown where I grew up. And the attorney we went to was Marvin Renitsky. He focused on estate planning. So I knew it was in the right hands. He had a great reputation. And then somehow our estate planning consultation got off track and we ended up talking, and I basically ended up hired on the spot, even though I wasn't looking for a job. But one thing led to another. I absolutely fell in love with estate planning because I was protecting people. I was making these families have peace. People would say, oh, I know if anything happens to my husband, I'll call Wendy. It was fabulous. And I actually ended up practicing for 15 years and really adored it. Now, it wasn't always easy because I later was in a firm that was really not a good fit for me, to the point where it was causing health problems. And I needed to get out of there, but didn't know how. Right. And I think a lot of attorneys are feeling this. They're not in the right environment. They're seeing it. It's affecting their happiness. It's to the point that it's affecting their health. And I had what's called an entrepreneurial seizure and decided to just jump. I'm going to do this. I had been effective in marketing with previous firms. And I thought, oh, I can do this. And I got out and realized I really knew nothing about business. The attorneys jump in and don't realize that they don't know anything about business. So my firm plummeted. My first firm splat, not a success, big fat failure, because I was basically trying to do it like everybody else. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I started looking around me and seeing that all these other attorneys didn't know how to run businesses either. And I'm like, this is crazy. That's when I first recognized that, seriously, that the business of law is really different than the practice of law. And I became really intrigued with enjoying learning about the business of law. So I rebuilt my firm to fit where I was in my life. Again, 3 children, all those roles and other responsibilities that I know you can relate to, and really built that firm to fit me. And then as it grew and I got things kind of revving along, I became really interested in just other ways how I could have more leverage. I always loved writing. So I started writing for other attorneys. And then I realized I was giving free marketing advice. Then I started giving away, selling marketing advice, because I think we all do that. We give away so much value, not realizing that we should be charging for it. And then one thing led to another. I was building that up, but I was still practicing. And I was actually in a meeting then I was a member of Wealth Council, another national attorney organization. And I went to that meeting, met the CEO, did a few things through the grapevine, through my posts on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I actually got recruited to help Wealth Council members. And Wealth Council is a large attorney organization. This is specifically for estate planning attorneys. But there are a lot of great organizations across the country that really serve attorneys and take them to the next level. And that's really cool. I got recruited, came into the senior executive level, and realized at that time, there really was no practicing. I was allowed to practice, there was no official reason I couldn't practice, but I just didn't have the capacity. And that became okay to me. At first I was like, well, you identify as a lawyer. But I was realizing that my growth wasn't I had kind of been there, done that. I worked on estates from, people with new parents or 18-year-olds with no assets to $500 million as part of a team. So I really had explored that area of my life and that profession, and was really excited about being able to do more, to be creative, to have more leverage, and to share my journey and what I had learned along the way with all those other attorneys then at that organization and now out in the world, so that they would have the freedom to create the path that they want, that they would have the freedom to create the life that they want, and then build a law firm to serve and support that life.
Wow. Hearing your journey, and thank you for sharing that. I guess I really didn't know that it started with being in a firm that you absolutely loved, and then going to another firm.
It was horrid. Yes.
And witnessing the other side of it. And one of my favorite books is The Body Keeps Score. And so often I hear from attorneys that what kind of shines a flashlight on that you're in the wrong environment or you're not on the right path is health issues. That's where it pops up. And it's almost like you white knuckle, you muscle through, that it's a toxic environment or not the right fit. Maybe it's not even toxic and it's not the right fit for you. Mm-hmm. And you show up every single day and you're pulling into the parking lot. At least these are the stories that I hear. And you just don't even want to walk in the building. I've had attorneys tell me that they'll pull in the parking lot and see employees' cars and not even want to go into the building because they're not the right fit. So a lot of times it takes a breakdown. It takes something in our bodies is usually the last stopping point where they're like, all right, I've been talking to you, I've been telling you, and you're just, a workhorse, a plow horse, and you're just muscling through. So now you're not really getting the message. So let me hit you over the head with the sledgehammer here.
Well, you know what? That's exactly it. And I have had physical challenges, health issues over the years when I'm doing that to myself, 100%. And I do hear that from other attorneys. I mean, I was crying when I got in I had the minivan at the time because I had the 3 kids, crying getting in, 6:15 getting in the minivan, crying in the elevator. Like, it was just ridiculous. And when we're in that state, though, it can be really hard to see alternatives. So if you and I can shout it from the rooftops today that there are alternatives, there are alternatives where you can be happy and be who you are and actually make more money than you are where you're feeling trapped.
Yeah. And you feel so alone in that. So often I hear from people and you and I've talked about this over the years when I get phone calls and I say, tell me a little bit about why you went into the practice of law. And the top 2 reasons that I hear, number one, because it was a year less school than medical school. And I was guaranteed the 6-figure income the second I walk out of law school, and or there's some type of lineage. Grandpa, dad, what have you, went to law school. So it was just expected that I did that. And that's what I hear from people. And then they get in there like, wait a minute, whether you're hanging your own shingle, which you've done, and or you've worked in a firm that you're just working for the man, so to speak, and you're just feeling like a plow horse all day, which you've done, and then you're feeling inside of you, you feel that rumbling where you're like, this is it. This is what I signed up for. This is what I have $100,000 plus in student loans and what have you for. And where's my fat paycheck? And where's my big marble desk? Right? That's
right.
And then you realize for however long you're in that grind, right? And then you start to feel like you're just white knuckling and there's a have to. I should do this. I have to do this. I went to law school. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So if you have that entrepreneurial seizure that you speak of, and what I love about your story is you are willing to say it was a miserable failure. And so often I hear from attorneys, they just keep going and they don't, where you have that breakdown to breakthrough to say, all right, I need to figure this out. They don't teach you about business in law school. They don't teach you about marketing, management, anything of that nature. And whether you are aware of it or not, your commitment and your passion to figure it out, because you are an amazing writer, you are so creative, you do have that marketing essence to it, and then you happen to own a law practice, and being able to find a way to figure it out early on led to the path of where you are today versus just doing it and just white knuckling every single day. I think so often attorneys don't know how to get off that hamster wheel. They don't know how to, and they don't know how to ask for help. There's a tremendous amount of shame and embarrassment that you're not this big, successful, the stories that we tell ourselves versus just the power of the pause and stopping and saying, there has to be a better way to do this.
And there 100% is a better way. There's not one way. Like, you get to pick. Like, you and I have talked about, people are leaving law. Like, that's an option. There are people who find a different job within the law, like a different career within the law. There are people who then decide to go out and do it on their own. And there's lots of times when people come to me, it's not always, but people who are the higher earners, like say 500,000 and above, they hit to that point. There's a lot of lawyers out there who actually don't want to practice. They either want to build a firm so somebody else can totally guide it and get out and totally do something different. Or when they come to me, they typically want to build that firm and really be the CEO and the spokesperson for that firm. And that's really exciting. So they're still in the law, they're still providing legal services, but they're not, digging ditches every day.
Right. And can you just share with us your process of what you went through in regards to having that moment where you built your practice and you were able to really do it in a systematic way, and then make the decision and give yourself permission to say, okay, I'm ready for the second entrepreneurial seizure, so to speak. And I'm going to give myself permission, like put my ego in the back seat and say I'm not going to practice law anymore. Because so often, to your point, they'll say, and it doesn't mean that you're going to close down your law practice. I get phone calls every single day of people saying, I don't want to practice law anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep my law firm, but I want to be able to be an extension of it and build this side of it, the coaching side, whatever it might be.
Right.
And I love that you even just saying that you went to Wealth Council and you really got out there and did some tremendous R&D, and which, by the way, Wealth Council is a phenomenal organization.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about the process that you went through in regards to giving yourself permission to no longer be a practicing attorney, because I know that's what I hear from attorneys, that they just they feel like it means defeat or failure, or, oh my God, I went through all this schooling, all this money, all this blah, 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 and letting go and stepping into and recognizing that that was a necessary journey to get you to where you are going.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, sometimes we look back and would say, oh, I would change this or this, but there's no use in that, right? You can't, you're not going to, and that's not really healthy, but like looking at like a building block that you became the person you are, like I wouldn't be able to understand or have empathy for, have insight what my clients are going through if I hadn't had both the successes in the past and the failures, including the personal pain. Letting go. You know what? I think you're always, like, I still consider myself an attorney. Like when people talks about lawyers, I put myself in that group, even though I serve as a consultant now. I looked at leverage. Like I didn't get out because, well, I guess I was kind of done. I didn't hate it at that point. I had got my vision. I was working with a lot of local banks, and they were like, I would do the estate planning for their clients and in their offices, and it was kind of rolling. But then I had the opportunity, like, well, I can serve 100 clients a year, but if I can help 5,000 attorneys help 100 or 200 clients a year, how many people am I helping? And I was happy. I'm happy doing that. Like when I feel, I don't know if it's an age or if it's just a perspective or something learning, but I started looking at impact. And there was several years where I felt weird because I wasn't practicing at all. But I think just I'm so in the zone with what I'm doing that I don't have that feeling anymore. I feel like I have actually more power to tilt the universe the way I think it needs to be tilted in what I am. And you're always going to have more. If you're happy, you're always going to have more power. You're going to be more effective. You're going to help more people. You're going to make more money if you have that level of joy in what you do.
You said something really critical there and I think it's okay to say, I'm done. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're saying I'm not finding the joy anymore, so often attorneys, when I talk to them, I will say to them, you sound so resentful and frustrated and angry. And they're like, no, I don't talk this way in the conference room with the clients. And when I have my clients record themselves, do mock meetings or record themselves in meetings, or I do my coaching calls on Zoom, like, and after a couple of weeks of it, I'm like, something's got to shift. Something's got to shift. And sometimes it's just changing your focus of practice, like you said before. Sometimes it is just admitting to yourself that there has to be a better way. I don't want to be in the conference room anymore. I've been doing this for 2, 5, 10, 20 years. And now let's bring on an associate. Let's start building this like a real business, which there's no greater accountability when you have someone on your payroll that you have to pay that's going to free you up to really step into your purpose and your mission.
Attorneys know that they need intellectual challenge, but they also need challenge in evolving as a human and personal development and just becoming more of who they are. And if you've done the same thing for a certain period of time, maybe you don't have that intellectual challenge anymore or not much of it. And you're just kind of evolving as a human to want to try. I mean, statistics say, I think people change careers 7 times, not just jobs, but careers 7 times in a lifetime on average.
Oh, wow.
So it's okay not to do the same thing. Other people aren't doing the same thing forever either.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, especially in the estate planning arena, and especially when you're an attorney and you're in the personal services industry, people hire the human. They're not hiring the attorney. And you are bringing your energy and your essence into the conference room. And what I love about this conversation is just really getting clear and honest with yourself. So if you're feeling consistently frustrated, and this is not a podcast that is lobbying for getting out of the area of law by no means. One of the greatest things that Wendy does is when people are at the point where they're saying, okay, there's got to be something better than this. And I feel like that's kind of the turning point where to bring in the entrepreneurial seizure and the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, where you own a job. You whether you're in the building or the scaling phase of your practice, at some point we all butt up against ourselves and we come to a place of, it doesn't matter if you're a solo practitioner with 1, 2 staff members or you have associates and 20 employees. At some point you get to the point where I think is opportunity to reevaluate and to sit down. And, Wendy, I love what you're saying here is just looking at the joy factor and the happiness and the fulfillment. And is this still my why? Is this my why in regards to the role that I play in this? So it's not an either or, that you have to either have a law practice or hang it up or close it up or what have you. It can be an and. And I know that's what
absolutely.
You really work with them, is unpacking that, because just having the awareness and tapping into your personal mission, vision, values, and just getting really clear about, okay, what's this all for? And is the role that I'm serving in right now, still seeing clients or what have you, is this still fulfilling me? Because if you're resentful, disappointed, frustrated, burned out, on the verge of having a health crisis, then it's time for the power of the pause and maybe just reflecting and finding a way that could fulfill you, but also really being able to build a practice and maybe your second act of it. And maybe you still have that practice and you're also building something on, on the sidelines of fulfilling you, but taking you out of the equation in the law firm.
Exactly. I love your power of the pause. That's powerful, because when you pause or you ask for help, when you pause and ask for help in that time, whether it be from, whatever you call your higher power, and then from some kind of mentor, or listen to a podcast like this, what it can really do is help you evolve your perspective. There's definitely more out there than all of us know in opportunities for us or ways we can do things. For example, I had a client, this client pops into my mind. So he came to me and his idea was that I would help him do more. How would he get more done? And I did just the opposite. I showed him how to do less. And that firm by building his team, by helping him see a different perspective, by helping him set bigger goals than he ever knew was possible. Those things, that different perspective, just a perspective change, or just even just a tilt of a different perspective is so valuable and just is life-changing. So I think attorneys think that they need to do more and more and more and more. And actually, they can be more effective, have more impact, make more money, be happier, when they step away and do less.
And it takes a different perspective, right? So I one thing I'm taking away from this is step one, if you're feeling, and I guess you don't even have to have some type of crisis or breakdown or what have you.
It'd be great if we could do it before that.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah. But sometimes hindsight, it is what it is. And so often, if you could just step one is reach out to a coach, a mentor. Many of you that are longtime listeners, that my passion, as you're speaking, Wendy, my passion is really bridging the gap between the entrepreneur and the team. I'm not an attorney and you are an attorney. And I love that you said, I still identify and resonate and put myself as an attorney, which brings such a great perspective for attorneys that you understand what it's like to sit in their seat as a practicing attorney, as an entrepreneur. And then if they're going to move to a place of building, scaling, and then replacing themselves, so to speak. And I'm really passionate about bridging that gap with the team and getting them into the attorney's perspective. But so often, as you were speaking, it doesn't sometimes require you to have a breakdown. So I would highly recommend, if nothing else you take from this podcast, is wherever you are, to reach out to a coach and to sit down and really just do what I call a thought download. Tell me where you're at and just really communicate when you have that neutral zone and you have somebody who can hold space for you and allow for you to, and they might just come back. They might come and say, you know what? Here's validation. You are absolutely on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing. You're going to reach all of your goals, your personal and your professional mission and things of that nature and fulfillment. And sometimes you just need what Tony Robbins calls, Wendy's calling it the tilt, the 2 millimeter shift, where you just need to. I have a client too that called me. They're in a big practice. The partnership broke up, went and hung his own shingle, grew that practice beyond their wildest dreams in 15 months. Never in a million years, very little money on retail marketing, just because they are an extraordinary human, and built the practice, grew it. I think they had 14 employees in 15 months, where it really was a Jerry Maguire moment, where it was the attorney and one assistant leaving with the goldfish. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they called me. They're like, we want to go back to just us. I am fried. I am burned out. I'm resentful. I know my clients are smelling it when I'm walking into the conference room, and I don't feel like I am truly making impact and that I am a complete authentic service because I'm exhausted. I'm fried and I've hit it. How do I go back to, it's a joke that we have way back when in the network days, where attorneys would say, I'm ready to close up shop. I just want to go bartend at a tiki bar in Key West. Like, there's got to be something better than this. And it doesn't have to be that, but we unpacked it and we found a way to say, yeah, less is more. You can make some of these shifts. What's your goals? What do you want to make financially? What do you want? And the only thing, and when we broke down the financial, they could still generate the exact same amount of money and really, truly get rid of 50% of their overhead. And just because it wasn't even about the overhead, it was about managing all those people from a production standpoint, from a human standpoint, from emotional capital standpoint. And they just got to the point where we figured out. And the only thing The only thing the attorney wanted was to get home, 3 kids as well, get home at night, make it to softball practice, and stop disappointing family and working late at night, and or working at night when the kids went to bed and robbing their spouse.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I see. One of the things that I ask my clients, well, we track, from a business perspective, we track metrics, key performance indicators, which I know you're familiar with. But one of them that we track, and probably the most important one, is their happiness metric. Because that is the key to whether we're on track and off track, as much as revenue and being able to pay the bills and take the money home we want. So are you spending the time the way you want to spend the time? Are you acting proactively? Are you just putting out fires? Are you creating the firm that you want, or the firm that you think other people think you should have? That you think all lawyers have firms like this. I mean, that's what happened to me. When I had that first firm, I was creating what I thought law firms were. I mean, this was before the internet was all rock and roll. People hardly used it. And then when I created the firm that was right for me, it was smooth sailing. It was totally different.
I love the happiness metric. I would lobby that's where you start. Usually it's the revenue, it's the KPI, it's the conversion rates, it's, average cost per value of case. None of that matters if you don't start with the happiness metric. That's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Start there.
Use it, spread it wide.
So, Wendy, in closing, what would you say for maybe your top tips in regards to, if you are at this point where your happiness metric, so to speak, might be on the lower end or less than ideal, what would be some drive-by coaching that you would give to our listeners in regards to giving themselves permission to maybe reevaluate the structure of the firm, and or find a way to get out of the conference room if that's where their happiness metric is on the lower end, and seeing clients and being able to be a bigger feature, that CEO level of the firm, and or leave law altogether or start a coaching practice or whatever it might be? What would be some of your drive-by tips to really give yourself permission to at least explore this journey?
So first, I would suggest that you observe the stories in your head. We all put stories in our heads and assume that they are true. And a belief is just something that you think over and over and over again. So we all put these stories in our heads. So I would invite you to put a story in your head that serves you. Because otherwise what happens is fear grows, stress grows. We don't see options. So when your head is, you're telling yourself stories over and over again, you're talking unkindly to yourself. Do you think this could happen, or this could happen, or this can happen? Observe it and replace it with a positive story. I will get 5 clients. I will find my zone. I can start my coaching business. I can not practice law anymore, but still own my law firm. And to learn from outside the law. So 1 is observe the stories in your head and replace them with good stories. 2, look from outside the law. What I do 99% of the time is learn from people and businesses and success who I resonate with, and bring those into the legal realm. But I'm always looking outside. So what happens when we're lawyers is there can be an echo chamber. So make sure that you're talking to a Molly McGrath, or you're talking to a Wendy Witt, or you're reading books or watching YouTube videos from other professionals outside the law. There is certainly much to learn within the law, but look outside. 3, you're going to feel scared. That's okay. Your amygdala are going to try to hold you back and keep you safe, but you're not going to get hurt. When you are in your zone, when you are following through your life's purpose, when you are feeling joy, you're on the right track. So anytime that you feel happy, that joy factor, the happiness metric is high, you're on the right track. If you're feeling unhappy, you're off track.
It's that simple. It really, law of attraction talks about getting in the vortex, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And when you're in alignment by how you feel. It's that simple. And a lot of times we negate that. Wow.
Spot on.
Powerful. Well, I think that is a good stopping point for us today. We've reached another episode, the end of another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions. And Wendy, we cannot thank you enough for this valuable information. I anticipate this probably going to be one of our highest downloaded episodes in regards to permission. I mean, this is such a hot topic right now to stop practicing law. And maybe that's not it for you. You still have your law firm, but you're not chained to the conference room and you're able to increase that happiness metric. I just love that. Thank you for all your wisdom today.
You are welcome, Molly.
Okay, so that's it. And for us, that's a wrap for today. And until next time, thank you, listeners.